Hi, so I'm Dantchenko, and I'm presenting today with Morris Levy, and we're going to be discussing the new guidance on gender-sensitive, gender-neutral cataloging from the PCC task group on gender.
So a little background on the history of the task group. It was charged in August 2022 for a 2-year term. It was an offshoot of the PCC ad hoc task group on recording gender in personal name authority records, which had been formed the year before. It is probably best known for its decision recommending the removal of field 375, the gender field, from, hello, that's a cat, recommending the removal of field 375, the gender field, from authority records. They had made a number of other, they discussed a lot of other things, and based on the topics that they had discussed and sort of expanding beyond authority records, the task group on gender was charged to issue best practices and guidelines for both implementation of the previous task group's report, as well as for gender in PCC bibliographic and authority metadata beyond field 375. We worked for 2 years, long discussions, or about 10 people, I believe, who served on and off, including representatives from the Library of Congress. The draft report was completed in November 2024. The PCC Policy Committee accepted our report with comments in December 2024. We are working, well, I should say the chair is working through those comments, and we hope that the final report will be out in the next month or so. Recommendations that we made are also aligned with the final report of the SCS task group on privacy in name authority records, which also had a 2-year term. Its recommendations have not yet been accepted by POCO. They are still discussing. So the status of the 375 field now, OCLC was given permission by the Library of Congress to begin deleting field 375 from authority records in August 2023. At that point, there were 1.3 million name authorities that included a field 375. Unfortunately, after 3 weeks, LC asked us to pause the program due to system issues. As you can imagine, we at OCLC send daily updates based on the contributors to the NACO program to the Library of Congress. We do that daily, and now we were adding to that load. We thought we were working on a small scale, but in the end, we were asked to stop. And then the British Library Catalog experienced a cyber attack in October 23. Because they were no longer able to accept authority records, we were asked to stop the project until the British Library systems could handle the workflow. We have not been asked to resume it at this point. And thankfully, as you can see, we were able to systematically remove 28,000 records. In the meantime, contributors have removed about an additional 30,000 records in the last year and a half or so. So currently there are 1.2 million name authority records that still include a field 375.
So that brings us to some of the guidelines that our group is recommending. And names are personal, contextual, and changeable. They evolve across time, cultures, languages, and legal systems. Not all transgender individuals change their names. And for those who do, the process may or may not involve legal steps, depending on personal choice or access to legal mechanisms. Some may refer to their previous name as a dead name and see its use as harmful. Others may not use this term or may continue using both their former and current names. Name changes can happen for many reasons beyond gender transition, though, such as marriage, divorce, legal status changes, religious conversion, privacy and safety concerns, such as protection from abuse or stalking, and just personal preference. Oops. Former names may still appear in various sources, and it's important to consider that revealing a former name can lead to harm, including harassment or discrimination, unintentional outing, or other privacy violations. And so a one-size-fits-all policy may not be feasible, but we're hoping these guidelines can have potential harms that are minimized. The following principles and best practices were developed with input from the Name Change Policy Working Group and Trans Metadata Collective, and they provide guidance on responsible handling of name changes in authority records. When a person changes their name, their former name may still appear in published resources issued before the change, bibliographic records in 245 fields, 511 fields, and 7XX fields, and authority records based on those resources. So those superseded, the LC superseded versions will still appear. Keep in mind variant access points. 400 fields are optional in RDA. You do not have to put those. If a person explicitly consents to including their former name and it appears in published works with literary warrant, it may be recorded as a variant name or moved to an authorized access point field and access point 100 field to a variant 400 field when updating a record. But there are important privacy considerations. OCLC retains all information recorded in name authority records, even deleted data. So we recommend to err on the side of privacy to avoid former names unless necessary and consented to. The recommendation of this task group is to refer to the PCC SCS task group on privacy and name authority records for additional privacy guidelines. Do not dig for former names that are not widely known. Do not record former names unless they appear in a person's publications and they have explicitly consented to their inclusion. Sorry, my cat is using a litter box now. Do not assume a reason for a name change, and it does not need to be determined or recorded. Consider changes in usage as enough justification for a new or revised authority record. And as I stated before, when in doubt, prioritize privacy. Contact the individual if you're unsure about the validity of name information, and honor all requests to remove or exclude former names from name authority records. If a former name has been removed or was never recorded, you can indicate this in a cataloger's note, a 667 field, or a source citation in a 670 field. Do not include the former name and do not use the term dead name. Do not disclose gender in the note. And include the date of the note to reflect the most up-to-date information, as names may change more than once. For justification of usage or indication of a name change, public announcements can serve as a source, though they should be in a somewhat official capacity, forthcoming publications or social media posts. But our group is specifically recommending to not use private social media, like private locked social media posts. And so the key principles for handling some of these changes, use most recently established name over a name justified by literary warrant. If the author provides consent, record it in a 670 field with date of confirmation. If no consent is given, document this in a 667 field. For deceased individuals, do not add former names or create links unless warranted by publication history. And prioritize author's stated preferences, even if they have not yet published under their current name. The proposal documents several example scenarios and mark coding recommendations for recording and documenting name changes in name authority records. These are simply a few out of many scenarios that exist concerning name changes and the creator's wishes for treatment of former and current names. So I think our document has around like 11 scenarios, and I've just put 3 here, but as you can see, some of it has to do with whether you've contacted the person with if they wish to keep their publications kind of indexed under 2 separate names, if they would rather them if they would rather their former name not appear whatsoever, if they do want them linked to each other, all of that. We tried to come up with a good number of scenarios, but obviously that's not going to account for every scenario that's going to exist.
So here are a few recommendations for working with gendered associated information. So for example, using an occupation to distinguish between one name and another. One that we find often enough is the use of boy soprano in the subfield C, excuse me. So we are recommending that we use more gender neutral terms like singer or soprano. Soprano designates a vocal range and not necessarily an associated gender. It's also clear, of course, that a boy soprano may not stay a boy soprano for the rest of their lives, and they move on beyond music. So if we included something like singer, soprano, or perhaps soloist on a particular recording, anything that would be specific to the recording, useful as a term that distinguishes, but not necessarily include a gendered term. Next. Likewise, with occupation, the Library of Congress subject headings include gendered terms like women composers. We are recommending that you not use those terms. Again, we have not been encouraged to use them, but we do find them being used in authority records anyway. So please use the gender neutral terms composers, and it can come from the demographic thesaurus as well as from LCSH. For the use of 386, creator contributor characteristics, again, not using gendered terms like gay men. This is also true in bibliographic records. We are not recommending that terms like those are used in bibliographic or authority records. And this also applies to the source notes in the 670 field. When you are quoting when you are quoting or using a source, in this case, Aaron Copland's What to Listen For in Music, we are recommending that you either just have the title. You could also, another form of that I didn't include would be just having Copland, comma, Aaron. But if you could either not have an attribution, you can say authors, What to Listen For in Music, do not use his or her or whatever the case may be.
So as Morris mentioned, for the audience and creator contributor characteristics and mark bibliographic fields, we are recommending to avoid gendered terminology. And this is sort of because of several reasons, but some of the ones that are cited are just incomplete representation. Assigning gender terms will always be inherently incomplete. Subjectivity and interpretation. The process of assigning such terms often relies on inference, which can introduce inaccuracies. And the risk versus benefit, potential harm and misrepresentation outweigh the benefits of collocation. So avoiding explicit gender descriptors such as women composers or songs for boys, implicit gendered language in any vocabulary, including non-English sources, and to minimize gendered language in terms without English equivalents. This group included recommendations for future work with Wikidata in our documentation. Though it may seem out of the scope of PCC, many catalogers and metadata practitioners have been active in entity management, and now there is a new PCC cooperative for entity management. I understand that I basically just said cooperative twice there, but in which there is hope to establish cooperation between various entity identity management registries such as ISNI and Wikidata. So it is not completely out of the scope of the work of this task group to offer recommendations. Wikidata is centralized, open access linked data repository that serves all Wikimedia projects. Because Wikipedia content is automatically integrated into Wikidata, any user can create an account and edit records. While this openness allows for broad global contributions, it also introduces challenges such as editing conflicts or edit wars and inconsistent data practices. Unlike traditional cataloging, which follows established rules and standards, Wikidata operates through community-driven guidance projects, but these are not necessarily enforced. Sex or gender is classified as a privacy-sensitive property within Wikidata. Wikidata's guidelines state that gender information should only be included if it is widely known or voluntarily disclosed by the individual. However, not all contributors follow these guidelines, and bulk editing practices can result in gender data being added without careful review. Carefully verify, so some of our recommendations are to carefully verify Wikidata items representing individuals, especially those lacking sources. Even source statements require scrutiny, as many are imported from unsourced Wikipedia entries or unreliable references, and prioritize privacy when handling gender-related data to prevent misinformation, privacy violations, or unintended harm. These are some projects that are already established. The Wiki project, LGBT Gender, provides a data model, examples, and collection of relevant discussions dating back to the creation of Wikidata in 2013. This Wiki project recommends a future scheme that separates gender from transgender status. And as of November 2024, no property for transgender status exists. And the Wiki project for personal pronouns provides best practices, resources, and a decision tree for considerations relating to representing personal pronouns in data model adjustments, implementation, and cleanup. By carefully evaluating sources and exercising caution, we can help ensure that Wikidata accurately and ethically represents individuals. Managing name changes, gender representation, and privacy-sensitive data in both authority records and Wikidata demands diligence, ethical awareness, and strong commitment to user privacy. By adhering to these principles, we foster inclusive, respectful, and responsible metadata practices, safeguarding privacy, maintaining ethical integrity, and ensuring equitable access to information. Thanks.
Thank you, Lycan and Morris. We have some questions. An anonymous person is asking, isn't there other information than gender in the 375?
I don't believe so. I believe that 375 was only used for gender, but it was not necessarily had a controlled vocabulary, and it wasn't specifically just the two sexes, male or female. So there were a number of categories that could have been that were recorded in the 375, but they were all gender.
Thank you. We have a question from Michelle Cronquist. Where besides OCLC do superseded versions of authority records live? Are they available publicly anywhere?
That's a good question. And I'll let Morris answer if he has a answer, but I will say, in addition to like the LC superseded versions, our group discussed frequently how data in the authority record, we can never predict where that data is going to end up and how it will be used, and what databases are out there kind of using that information that aren't updated when something is deleted from an authority record. So it's kind of like we may never know, but I'll let Morris answer if he has any thoughts.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on some discussion that's going on I see in the chat. Yes, in 375, there were additional subfields besides the gender subfield, but they were all relating to the subfield A. So things like dates, which again, extremely problematic. And that's really, part of why we were looking at this, to determine when someone was one gender and then changed to another. That was really part of all the conversations we're having about privacy. So to my knowledge, again, that this is something that is searchable in connection for the authority records, maybe also in WorldShare, I'm not sure, but it is something that is available. I think that, again, I don't know for sure the kinds of security that there is, even something searching against the authority file, the one that's available through the Library of Congress, and using, I don't know, the Wayback Machine in order to do this. Again, it's not that it is readily available, it is just available, and it's something that we need to account for.
Okay, I think the only other question I see in the chat was from Patrick Hutchinson. What consequences could we expect given the leanings of the current political administration?
I think that's I think it's something, again, to be concerned with. It's hard to know, whom they would come after, outside of just sort of we already know how some communities have felt about ALA, and so it's not, I'm not sure exactly how they would target decisions that are being made by NACO through PCC, their policy decisions. I'm not sure who they would go to, and I am also sure that there are going to be some librarians who may choose to not follow these recommendations. It's one thing that will happen is that once the field 375 is removed, once that project is finished, we will be able to no longer make field 375 available. So no one could actually add a field 375. Right now, as long as they're existing, OCLC can't prevent people from adding it now. It's just that it would not be following the PCC guidelines, and that's why no one's doing that. But at some point, we could just turn it off, and it would no longer be available.